Experts say hundreds of thousands of Americans may have lost their homes due to a bill championed by Senator Joseph Biden, Democrat from Delaware, Barack Obama's vice presidential running mate. At least 2 studies have concluded that the United States foreclosure crisis was exacerbated by the 2005 Bankruptcy Abuse Prevention and Consumer Protection Act that overhauled the nation's bankruptcy law. Biden, who has enjoyed hundreds of thousands of dollars in campaign donations from credit industry executives, endorsed the measure early on and worked to gather Democratic support for it. Biden's early and vocal support was essential to the bill's passage, said Travis Plunkett of the Washington, D.C.-based advocacy group Consumer Federation, which sponsored the measure. Biden went out of his way to undermine criticism of the legislation, and his efforts helped convince other Democrats to support the bill. Biden was a fairly strong proponent of that bankruptcy bill, said Philip Corwin, a consultant for the American Bankers Association, which represents banks and lenders. BAPCPA is directly responsible for the rising foreclosure rate since the end of 2005, concluded a 2007 study by Credit Suisse. The law increased foreclosures and the number of homes for sale, echoed a July 2008 study by the U.S. Treasury researcher David Bernstein. Okay, are you ready? Because this is another long and complicated story about how Obama backers were behind the mortgage industry meltdown. It starts with a bank failure and a well-known Chicago name, Penny Pritzker. 1,406 people lost much of their life savings when the Superior Bank of Chicago went belly up in 2001, with over $1 billion in insured and uninsured deposits. This collapse came amid harsh criticism of how Superior's owners promoted subprime home mortgages. As part of a settlement, the owners paid $100 million and agreed to pay another $335 million over 15 years at no interest.
July 30th, I went to the bank to deposit some money, and I pulled up to the drive-up window, and it was closed. And I thought, well, this is kind of odd, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, because I had taken the day off. And so I got out of the car, and I went to the front door of the bank, and there were some people standing at the door, and the doors were locked. And I told them I needed to get in. I needed to make a deposit. And they said that the bank had been closed. It was the FDIC people. And that the bank had been closed, that it had failed.
But this 7-year-old bank failure has relevance in another way today, since the chair of Superior's board for 5 years was Penny Pritzker, a member of one of Obama's richest families and the current finance chair for the presidential campaign of Barack Obama, the same candidate who has lashed out against predatory lending. The subprime mortgages were provided to Merrill Lynch by a nationwide Pritzker originating system, using Superior as the cash cow with many millions in FDIC insured deposits. Kind of reminds you of Obama's special friend Tony Ritzko, who worked the low-income housing scam in Chicago. Small potatoes, that Tony. He only destroyed millions in housing value. Pritzker was involved with trillions. Now let's look at another one of Obama's thieves, James A. Johnson. In the last year, Johnson, who once was a member of an organization known as Friends of Hillary, has become tightly tied to the presidential campaign of Barack Obama. It's Johnson's job to vet potential vice presidential candidates for Obama, a duty he also performed for Walter Mondale, who ended up running with Geraldine Ferraro in 1984, and John Kerry, who ended up with John Edwards 4 years ago. In 1990, Johnson went to work for Fannie Mae as the CEO and quickly became its $5 million a year chairman. His compensation rose to a reported $21 million by his final year, 1998. Which brings us back to the Fannie Mae organization, a sweet little setup for handing out cash to a nice little outfit called ACORN. Among others, that's right, ACORN, the same organization that the Obama presidential campaign paid more than $800,000, the same organization that has been convicted on multiple counts of voter fraud, the same ACORN that endorses Obama's campaign while pledging to spend $35 million this year registering voters, most real but many fictional. Here are a few of the grants to ACORN. ACORN Housing Corporation, Dallas, $20,000 approved in 1993. ACORN Housing Corporation, Little Rock, $1,000 approved in 1997. ACORN Housing Corporation, Washington, D.C. ACORN Housing Corporation of Illinois. ACORN Housing Corporation of Illinois. ACORN Housing Corporation, National, Chicago. ACORN is also a former legal client of Senator Obama's, as the Sun-Times reported in 2006. This is a quote from the Sun-Times. In 1995, former Republican Governor Jim Edgar refused to implement the federal motor voter law, which Republicans argued could invite fraud and which some Republicans feared could swell the ranks of Democratic voters. The law mandated people to be allowed to register to vote in government offices such as driver's license renewal centers. Obama sued on behalf of ACORN, the Association of Community Organizations for Reform Now, the League of Women Voters, and other public interest groups joined in. He and his client were the ones who filed the original case. They blazed the trail, said Paul Mullica, who represented the League. Actually, I think the Chicago machine needs to be praised. Jesus brought a few people back from the dead. Jesus was even able to bring himself back from the dead. But the Chicago machine is special. It brings tens of thousands back from the dead. So in addition to rigging elections, one of ACORN's other functions is to help people who were barely qualified or totally unqualified to get housing. By finding landlords who would rent to them? No. Landlords want to get paid. Fannie Mae had no such scruples. Ever hear of Ninja mortgages? Ninja stands for no income, no job, no assets. No income, no job, no assets. Just the kind of reliable, honest folks lenders are looking for. People with a credit score of 0. While Barack Obama likes to talk about how he'll change Washington and how it's wrong for Washington insiders to be making big bucks from other Washington insiders, Obama once again is just talk. Jen Rubin links to an article showing that Barack Obama, in just the few short years he's been a senator, has taken in over $126,000 from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, more than any other politician in D.C. except one. Here are the top 3 recipients of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac campaign contributions between 1989 and 2008. Christopher Dodd, Barack Obama, John Kerry. Here are a few more notable names: Harry Reid, Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi. As Rubin points out, the reasons the politicians at the top of the list received so much cash was because the companies knew that they could count on them to do what they wanted them to do. So while Obama pontificates about special interests controlling Washington, he's been in on it from the very start of his Senate career.